Hey everybody, Carrie Hoffmeister here with Abundant TV. I am so excited for the guest that we have today. He is a jack of all trades. He is an author, producer, journalist, news director, lead anchor for EWTN News. You can also catch him on Fox News. I feel like the list of things you don't do would be shorter than the list of things you do, but welcome to Raymond Arroyo. Thank you.
Hi, Carrie.
I
Great
was
to be
reading
with you.
all of your, things that you do, and I'm like, holy cow, is there anything you haven't done?
Well, I should do less, Carrie. Talk to my family; they'll tell you, do less, Dan. Do less. No, it's good. I'm the type of person that if I don't have a bunch of pots simmering, I'm not happy. I like can't focus on any one of them. So the variety actually helps cross pollinate whatever I'm working on. So I enjoy it.
Good. Well, you're good at it, so you're doing something
Thank
right
you.
there.
You're very kind.
Well, I'm so excited to have you on.
Yeah,
You have you here because you have a new children's book coming out
I do.
on March 21st. It's going to be the first of a series called Turnabout Tales.
Yes.
The first book is called The Unexpected Light of Thomas Alva Edison. I got to read it a couple times. I
Oh,
really enjoyed it. I loved it. I'm going to talk about later what some of my favorite parts were.
okay.
First, just go ahead and start and let us know what your book is about.
Well, I don't like these. There are a lot of children's biographies out there. I don't call them children's or picture books. I actually call them family reads because it's one of the few times, and it's partially why I write picture books on the side because I love the idea, and I got into writing for children because I wanted parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and the child in their life to come together and spend that time bonding, sharing their mutual experiences, their values, their beliefs with each other. And I think when you have that cross pollination of ages, you get a rich understanding of not only the wisdom of the elders, but the innocence of the younger generation opens us up to all kinds of new things that we may have missed along the way. So I really wanted to facilitate that conversation between the various ages of families. And a picture book allows you to do that because it's not a big commitment. It's a little, it's 19 flips, as I always say. And it allows everybody to kind of dive in. So when I write these books, I do write them for both audiences, for an older audience and for the child taking the ride that you can see in the foreground. But often I'll get letters from people saying, oh, this was so moving, or I didn't expect this to, change the way I think about whatever I'm writing about. And that was the intention. I like writing for the child today and the child tomorrow, because in my experience of reading to my own children, my favorite books, Treasure Island and Peter Pan and The Jungle Book, when I went back and read that to them, my takeaway was very different from my memory of that story and what I thought it was about as a child. And that's the beauty of good children's literature, good family reads. So that's what I'm trying to do with all these books. And the Turnabout Tales series is the same. The first book is about Thomas Edison, but it's not a flyover biography. It's not womb to tomb. It focuses on a crisis point in Thomas Edison's life, as it will on everyone I focus on in this series, a crossroads in their life where a decision was made coming out of a challenge and all of history turned. All of the destiny of this young life opened up. And it was in that moment, in this case, when Thomas Edison was 8 years old, it was in that moment that the entire future was shaped and really opened up to him. The greatest inventor of all time came from an 8-year-old and the reaction of his mother in a moment of crisis. And I thought we should capture this. This bit of history shouldn't be lost. So that's what the Turnabout Tales series is about. And the unexpected light of Thomas Alva Edison. It's unexpected because if you look at his trajectory as a child, there's no way this kid's going to be the greatest inventor of all
Right.
time. No way.
That's right. And that's what I loved about it too, is just the message itself for parents, because I don't have little kids. I have a 13-year-old stepdaughter, but just as a parent, you read it and you're like, wow, this is moving, because we don't realize the impact that we have on children. Sometimes I think we're like, oh, I just wish that he was more like me or she was more like me.
Right.
Why is she so different? Why does she so quirky in this area? And
Hmm.
mother was so like, oh, but he has a light, like he's gonna do big things. And even his father was, would say annoyed at times, or and
Right.
people thought he was a nuisance. And his mother was just accepting of the fact that he was curious and that there was
Mhm.
something in that. I love the theme you have. So the
Mm.
title is The Unexpected Light. I also love the very first page. So when I read the first page, I read it a couple times because I thought that was good writing. And it's just two sentences, but how you connect light to I'm going to go ahead and read it because I have it
Okay,
written.
go ahead.
But it was, as a baby, little Al Edison slept in a dark, windowless attic, but there was light within him. I was like, oh,
Mm.
that is so good.
Yeah.
Because one, he invented the light bulb.
Yes.
But two, throughout the whole book, you talk about this light that was in him. And I just
Mhm.
love that connection that was made.
Yeah,
So
well, that's and I love that you can play, you can play with those sorts of things in the storytelling, and children get that on a deep level. You don't, adults will kind of go, oh yeah, there was light in him. Not a child. They'll go, well, where's the light? How was it in him? Where? And you want those questions to be asked, because I think there's light in all of us. It's
yes.
just, and as you said, it's up to the adults to sort of kindle that light and accompany that child and be with that child where they are, not where you'd like them to be, but
Mhm.
where they are. And that is the challenge of being a parent. We have 3 kids, Carrie. My oldest is now 24 years old. When you're raising a child, everyone is different from the last. They just are. They're their own creatures. And though there are similarities and family triggers and reflections that you see, many times they have their own way of proceeding through life, and you just have to figure that out as a parent. There was the thing that really drew me to this whole series, this story particularly. A friend of mine had given me an old Edison biography, and it sat on my shelf for years, and I picked it up one Christmas and just started to read, and there was a line in it, and when I read this line, this entire story really occurred to me. It was in that moment. I have the note to prove it. Edison wrote later in life, he said, my mother was the making of me. She let me follow my bent. The good effect of her early training I can never lose. If it had not been for her appreciation and her faith in me at a critical time in my experience, I should very likely have never become an inventor.
Mhm.
And I thought, wait a minute. How was the mother the making of Thomas Edison? My gosh, the man who created the phonograph and the microphone and the light bulb and the first voting machine. Come on. What is he talking about? Well, as
Mhm.
I dug into this story, I thought, you know what? Not only is this a great bit of history that we may have all forgotten, but it's a great lesson for parents, for kids, for educators. And
Yes.
in my reckoning, Thomas Edison should be the saint, patron saint of homeschooling, frankly, because of what happened and who he
Mhm.
became.
Oh, absolutely. Do you have a personal connection as a father to this story of maybe there was times in your kids' lives that they had a light in them that maybe normally have been like, oh, I don't know, but you kind of had to let them explore that?
Sure. I mean, you see this repeatedly in your children's lives,
Yeah.
where the school or the program has a certain track that they want the kid to proceed on. And your child is really good at this, but that's not how they work,
Mhm.
But I can tell you, it really, what it truly did was resonate in my own life. When I was in third grade, I was a year higher than Edison. Um, I was a Gabby, if you can imagine this. I was a talkative child who wouldn't shut up during class, and I would finish my work quickly, and then I'd turn to the girl behind me and start talking to her, and the kid next to me and talk to him, and I'd tell jokes, and well, this did not go well. And the teacher, a nun, threw me out of the class, literally threw me out of the class, because I couldn't be taught, which was similar to what Edison got the rap for.
Yeah.
So I sympathized with him, and I kind of understood him on another level.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was thrown out of school. They put me into a fourth grade teacher's room. They were down the hall, and
Mhm.
she and I became fast friends because she let me help her. I could talk. I could kind of do my thing. She understood and adapted the learning to where I was, and I think that's the key. You
Mhm.
have to let the child sort of tell you how they learn, and then try to accommodate that learning as best you can.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that, because when I was researching you and learning about all the things that you do, I was kind of reminds me of Thomas Edison, like all these different things that he's accomplishing and doing, and just a name for yourself. And so I saw the resemblance there as well. But
I wish I had those. I wish I had the royalties from those patents, Carrie. But okay, I'll take the compliment.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, let's not get my head too swelled. I mean, come on. The man created the first dynamo system in America and lit the streets. And look, we're still bathing in the glow of a guy who's been dead almost a century, or more than a century now. So no, I think that's high praise, but I'm not sure I'm worthy of it.
I mean, EWTN news, that's a big deal, though. I mean, that's something that I aspire. You are aspiring. I was very nervous doing this, because as a journalist, interviewing a journalist like you, it's an honor. It really is. But so back to the book, though, how much impact do you think that we as parents have on our kids for what they're going to become in the future?
Everything. You look, it's part of the reason I have a literacy initiative called Storyented, Carrie, and I founded it years ago. I wrote a middle grade series called the Will Wilder series for Random House, which I'm still writing. And so that's for slightly older readers, but I have college kids and 90-year-old grandmothers reading that series as well. When is the next one coming? They're always writing. But the part coming out of that, when I started doing school visits, I realized I walked into the classroom one day and we had given the children copies of the book. So when I walked in, about 150 of them had copies of the book, and they were doing that. They were rubbing the book. They had it on their shoulders, kind of rubbing it, or here, rubbing the book. I said, what are they doing? Why are they all stroking these books? And the teacher said, honey, they don't have books of their own. Because they don't have books of their own. And I kind of got choked up, and I remember thinking, well, why don't they have books of their own? And part of it is people, the school has a library, they can check them out, but they're not their books. The other part of it is they didn't have an adult to sort of read to them regularly and introduce them to this great world of literature. So I think it's critical that parents, the influence of a parent, the example of a parent, even when children don't tell you, when you're going about your daily life, they're watching you. They're watching your example. They're watching how you're interacting with others, and they're taking cues. Part of that is teaching them how to think freely and well, how to read and study deeply and well, and how to be a good person, how to live well too. And part of that is bringing your faith and your understanding of the world and what you've learned to bear. So there, I think parent is critically important. You are really the concierge through life for your children until a certain age, and then they take it from there. And wherever you've led them, they will continue down that path, good or ill. And I'll tell you a story later if you remind me. I was just at Angola, which is the maximum security prison here in Louisiana, which reminded me of this lesson, in a negative way, I guess.
Yes, it's especially, I feel like now in this day and age, in this culture, it's so vital. And I feel like there's less and less of parents being involved in their children. I see it with my stepdaughter. I call her my daughter. She's mine. But, I get so shocked sometimes at how parents are involved in certain things. And I'm just like, man, it's just so vital to be so present in your children's life. And you are literally what is molding them and helping them become what they're going to be in this world that they enter.
Well, we need each other. We need each other. And, they need us now, and we will need them later, which people forget. I think, this is why family is so critical. Family is, it is the nucleus of all society. If the family is broken, the society is broken. And when people tell me, they're worried about crime, they're worried about, the inflation rate, they're worried about not being able to find workers and help. Well, all of that is attributable to the family. When the family is shattered, everything else shatters too. And we're in that place right now. And the only way to fix it is to fix the family. Because it is about love, and it is about sacrifice, and it is about caring about that person more than you care about yourself. And only a mother or father really feels that way
Right.
and can impart that kind of love. And if you don't, there are ramifications for it. And we're
Yes.
seeing them, sadly. We're living through them.
Yes. I read that in the end of the author's notes that you talked about what he said about his mother. And I thought that was so beautiful. Even
Yeah.
after she was gone, he just gave her all of the credit for his success and who he is today and who we still talk about and is
Well,
in
and we should talk a second about, what she did. She was an educator from Canada, his mother, Nancy Edison. She had, I think, 9 children. Some of them died in, childbirth or died shortly thereafter. But he was the last child. Okay. He was the baby at home. And he couldn't be taught. He was thrown out of school in 2nd grade. They said he's addle-brained and not teachable. She said, no, my boy, he has got curiosity and I'll take him home. I'll teach him myself. And she did. And she gave him literature and she gave him regimented lessons in the home. She taught him to read, and he kept writing years later about she taught him to read and to learn both with his eyes and his mind, but also with his hands. She knew he liked to tinker and build and get into trouble. And even as a little kid, he was busting open beehives to figure out how honey was made. He was burning down the family farm because he wanted to see what fire would do. So now these are horrible, tragic things in some cases. And people go, oh, this kid's a menace. She didn't see that. She saw a child who was curious and was willing to get involved and dig in. And the rest of his life, the amazing thing is Thomas Edison, the man who created the alkaline battery that we still use today, the light bulb, the microphone, the phonograph, you name it, all of those things. He never had formal education after 2nd grade. He was self-taught, and he understood how to think properly and then tinkered and experimented his way into new creations. It's a cool lesson for all of us, I think. All of us.
It really is. I feel like I learned stuff reading this book. And
Me too.
My attention span can be really hard to keep sometimes. And I feel like this book, especially with the pictures, was really good. But what was your favorite scene and your favorite part of writing this book? So my favorite, real quick, was when he was laying on the eggs and he made that connection of, if they're warm, they'll hatch. And I love the picture. It just made me laugh, all these eggs, and he's just laying on these eggs, because I feel like a lot of kids probably do that anyway if they make that connection. Yes. But what was your favorite part?
Well, my favorite part in the book, I think, are the 2 turnabouts in the tale. And there are 2. The first is when he's thrown out of school and his mother, he breaks down in tears. His mother brings him to school and says, I'll homeschool him. I'll let him follow his bent, which is how he described it. The other turnabout that people sometimes miss is a good deed. The kid was a hustler. He was a hard worker. He was working at 12 years old. He was a newsboy selling things on the railway, snacks and papers. But at one point, he sees a child in the path of a boxcar that's sliding toward him. And it's a little 2-year-old boy on the train track. Edison throws his paper aside, which is a big deal, big sacrifice. This is his livelihood. He jumps onto the track. He pulls the boy up and kind of rolls away and just escapes being hit by the boxcar. That good deed is the second big turning point in his life, because the boy of that child he rescues is the telegrapher, the guy who runs the telegraph at the local train station. And as thanksgiving to little Tom Edison, he says, I'll train you on how to be a telegrapher, a professional telegrapher, how to operate a telegraph. And Edison had always been fascinated by electricity, and the telegraph was the biggest invention of the day. So it is that training that he receives after saving the man's son that furnishes him with an intimate knowledge and the practical application of the science and the electricity that would fuel and run through the rest of Edison's life. So I love that it's both a perceived failing, probably ADHD, which he would have surely been diagnosed with today.
Yes.
ADHD was a part of it. And then a good deed, caring for someone else, ended up opening up the other part of his life. So those 2 moments are my favorites, I think.
So is that where the title came for the turnabout Tales then? Was
No,
having
I
these
a
turnabout
Turnabout
moments?
Tale. I actually, the second book coming out is the first one I wrote in the series.
Oh, okay.
And because of illustrations and other things, we decided to put that out second. So that's coming next
Okay.
year. But I quickly realized as I read all of these biographies and just started thinking about how do you frame this.
Hmm.
Um, I get bored, and I think kids, more importantly, and I've read to them, so I know they get bored when you
Yes.
read them these long biographies. Well, Thomas Edison was born in Millen, Ohio. They just get it.
Yeah.
There's not
You
enough of
lose
a
them.
narrative through line, and we have to look. I learned this writing for middle graders. You can't, when you're writing a middle grade book, you have to build in constant cliffhangers and
Mm.
mysteries to keep the kids turning the page. Now, I'm like that too. I have a bit like you.
Yeah.
You got to earn my attention.
Hmm.
And after a few minutes, if you don't hold it, I'm on to the next thing.
Yep.
So I don't think a reader has an obligation to read my book. I have an obligation to make them keep reading the book. So I wanted to create a family read where the kids would be excited and interested. There would be a bit of mystery, and you would really pull for this kid. And that happens in all of these Turnabout Tales. They are moments of crisis. We have a little motto. You can see it on the back of the book. It's become the motto for the series. Turnabout Tales is challenges faced, paths changed, and history turned. That's
Mm.
really not only the summation of these great lives, but
Mhm.
really all of our lives. We all have turnabout tales. And part of what I'm trying to do is to get parents and kids to recognize those crises, those things that you think are the end of your world. No, it's the portal, it's the beginning, it's the doorway to the rest of your world. So don't be discouraged. Make the right decision in that moment, and then
Mhm.
you'll see great things will happen just
Yeah.
on the other side of this crisis. And that's
Yeah.
really Edison's story. Well, I won't ruin the other tales, but it's all of these great lives have these crisis moments where in that crisis was the kernel of brilliance that would light the rest of their lives.
Hmm. So, what can you share with us for the next series to come? Can you give us an Easter egg that you haven't given to anyone else? And
Okay, a
maybe
little
what's
Easter egg.
okay.
The next book concerns a neglected presidential child.
Okay.
I'm not going to say any more.
I know you're not. That's why
It's a
I'm trying to think.
neglected presidential child, but it's such
Okay.
a cool. In fact, I just finished editing all the pictures, and these books. People say, "Oh, picture books must be great. It's a lot easier to write than those other books." No, actually, they're a lot harder to write
Yeah, I
for this
bet.
reason. It's really, to my mind, it's like a film because you're laying out a storyboard and you have only 19 turns, 19 flips to make an impact and to
Mhm.
emotionally draw someone in and to hold their attention. So it's really the condensing is the problem. It would have been so much easier for me to write a 200-page book about
Yeah.
Thomas Edison, and I practically did. And then you have to winnow it down and keep cutting and cutting and cutting, and then you have to cut again to let the pictures tell the story. And it's just like film. You don't need 5 pages of dialogue. You
Yeah.
get 2 images in and then a few lines and the audience gets it. So
Hmm.
it's giving it's kind of presaging where the audience is. That's the hardest part, I think, of writing these books, trying to get ahead of them so that
Yeah.
oh, they've got that. Now we can move on to the next thing. And just telling them what they need to know and not over telling them or over
Great.
explaining. But no, the next tale is very moving. And very different from Thomas Edison's story.
Okay.
But again, a young person in distress, in crisis, and how they. Well, I won't ruin it.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to
So
tell you, but I
I know,
can't,
I
Carrie.
want to know.
Stop it! Stop
Is
trying to
this
tempt me.
That's good. So is this gonna be like once a year these come out? How many are there gonna be? Is this gonna be like a Land Before time where there's 40 plus, or
We'll
you're
see.
familiar with the
I
Land
mean,
Before time?
I've talked to my publisher. I would like to have one a year come
Okay.
out. They are very time intensive, though, I have to tell you.
Okay.
And because of everything else I'm doing, I don't quite know how we'll pull that off. But I would like that. There's certainly enough material. I mean,
Yeah.
and the other reason I wanted to do this series is not only to give young people, in this case, people with ADHD or kids diagnosed. There's 6 million people diagnosed with ADHD. And they think this is like, the end of their lives. No, no, no. There are gifts there. There are precious gifts and ways of perceiving life that others don't have. That's a good thing. But you need educators and you need parents who understand that and will accommodate that style of learning. That's A. B, I thought it really important to reacquaint young people and not so young people with history that is being taken from us. There was a time where everybody knew who Thomas Edison was. Today, that's not the case, particularly among young kids. It is not the case. All they know is Edison created the light bulb, if they know that. And the truth is, he didn't create the light bulb. Didn't. Edison, by his own admission, said, I built on everyone else's failures. The arc light had already been created. In other words, putting two poles and electricity surging between them. That had been created. The problem was no one had come up with an incandescent bulb that could stay glowing. Edison created that. The glowing, constantly glowing bulb that could glow for hours and hours and hours. That was Edison's contribution, and a pretty remarkable one. But he built on the failures of others, and it was a process of elimination. That was his way of creating. So I thought it's important to rescue history and revive it, because there are lessons there we still need.
That's so good. Well, you answered my last question without even me having to ask you, so that was good.
Like no, the past is a great light for us into the future. And I think sometimes people think, oh, those are older. What do I have to learn from them? Let me tell you something. Older people and lives that went before us, they are rich with wisdom and meaning. And I promise you, I know, because I've been the beneficiary of great writers. I've known broadcasters, actors, directors who went before me, who I feel blessed to have encountered in life. And the wisdom they've given me are things I use today. And so I think if you can find that, if you can mine that in a great life and present it in a package that's attractive and easily grasped, that's worth the trip. So that's what I'm trying to do with the Turnabout Tales series. So go get the first one. Go buy them all.
Yes. Where can people find it? And where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me always at RaymondArroyo.com, RaymondArroyo.com. I'm going on the road. We're doing right now it's 6. I think we're going to do a few more stops during the book tour. But if you're in Tennessee, Nashville, down at the Villages near Orlando, Reagan Library.
Are you going to come to Grand Rapids?
What now?
Are you going to come to Grand Rapids?
I was going to, but I don't think I am. But we'll see.
Oh, you got to come.
I'm going to try. I'll try.
Let me know if you do.
I'll check with my publisher. But I know, and you can get the book at Amazon. The book's at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, your independent bookstore, wherever books are sold. I hope you support your independent bookstores. But you can order it anywhere. The Unexpected Light of Thomas Alva Edison. And it's just the first. Get the first of the series, because I think it's going to be an important series, I hope.
Oh, it's so good. I love it. I don't even have young kids, and I loved it. And I just think it's just a great book. It's going to be a great series. I can't wait to see what's next. I'm going to try to figure it out. But thank you so much for joining us today. And that's all we have for today. It's all we have time for. But thank you so much for watching Abundant TV. And until next time.
All right. We did it.
We did it.
Thank you for the time, Carrie.